Hey YouTube, Josh here with one of my latest reviews, non-Godzilla but still sci-fi, monster movie related, and it's going to be up to 2006 Korean film The Host, which is a movie I'm pretty sure a lot of monster fans are hopefully familiar with. It's been out for a while. I didn't see it till 2011, about 5 years or so after its release. But nonetheless, the movie stayed with me after all this time. I bought it on DVD, and I've enjoyed it ever since multiple times. And I guess best way to summarize this movie is that it really is one of the best monster films of all time. So with that said, what makes The Host so great? Well, let's take a look at some of the other stabs at monster cinema in recent years that came before and after The Host. On one end of the spectrum, you have attempts like the 1998 version of Godzilla, which was, as we all know, a very dismal movie. No getting around that. And then we also have things like the intriguing yet lacking Cloverfield. So, it's really hard to find a genuinely well-done monster film these days. Well, up until the release of the latest Godzilla film, of course. But what makes The Host at its core so great is the fact that it mixes so many things into one genre, which by most modern audiences, they usually go in knowing they're going to know the monster movie off the back of their hand, know exactly what's going to happen and when and how it's going to be portrayed, because even some of the best monster movies sometimes live up to those same stigmas, same cliches. And then it ends up becoming kind of predictable. Even though sometimes it's enjoyable, it's not exactly original or anything of that matter. And that's where The Host differentiates itself so much from other monster movies. And in fact, if I had to compare it to some of the older Japanese monster cinema to get a real tone out of it, I suppose, I'd say it's a lot of things. But to me, one of the most accurate ones would be, I'd say, not since the original Japanese cut of King Kong vs. Godzilla has there been a kaiju film quite like this one. And I mean that. I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. Because a lot of people think of King Kong vs. Godzilla as either one you love or hate in the Godzilla theories. And most people don't even look at it from the human angle that much. They focus so much on the title monsters, which is alright, I suppose. Can't blame you for doing that. However, it's not the sole purpose of the film. Now, let me be honest right now. I'm a review writer for IMDb and a number of other things like that. But unfortunately, my Korean is not very good at all. So I'm not even going to attempt to butcher all the names of the cast and the crew during this review. So forgive me for not stating them by name. But in any case, let me just continue with that out of the way. First, I'll say, for a renowned horror director, this director's work really shines through. You could really see the horror aspects of this movie in here. But what I also like is he also infused a lot of other things in here, including, bits of comedy that were very well staged and never felt out of place. And the best thing about the comedy in this movie is that it defined important traits about the characters. It was never just for the hell of it. It was never for the sake of product placement. The comedy was there, and it matched what was going on, and it helped the story move along. Or it told you something about the characters, which is very, very important. So amongst having these, light touches of well-done humor, as well as some very well-done horror scenes, very well done, very well staged, we also have this whole political, I'd say, a very critical look at the politics of both, not just the Korean government itself, but also America in a way. Although some people who would go as far as say the film is anti-American, I don't think so. But it definitely pokes fun at the way the government handles things, because even though this is, of course, a fictional event, it mirrors what's gone on in history in so many ways. It's both hilarious and it makes you think. That's the thing about this movie. It makes you think about what's going on the screen a whole lot. And that's the beauty of it. So moving on to a technical aspect of the movie looks and sounds fantastic. It really does. Not only does the monster get plenty of screen time, which we'll get to in a little bit, but the cinematography was great. Daylight, nighttime, doesn't matter. Everything looks fantastic. There are no shots that make you cringe as far as like technically speaking. The CGI was actually pretty damn good. The way things were lit just made it feel very real, which is the crazy thing about this movie, because the monster really does look like something you've never seen before. But when shot amongst the people and the victims it's going to kill and whatnot, it actually looks like a real monster that could exist, and I love it for that. And the score, my god, it's weird because the score, just like the movie itself, balances between comedic and terrifying, but also there's essence of tragedy to it as well during many points. And I really gotta give a composer props for that. It was just an incredible score, one of my favorites, really, in the monster cinema. And I guess, yeah, you could really just... It's very different, and it hits on a number of emotional levels, which makes it just stand out by far. The moments of silence, though, are almost even better, I could say, which is a terrifying concept, really. I mean, it really speaks for the tension of the movie, the tension it creates. Sometimes out of the blue, you can be thrust so naturally from a comedic scene right into horror, and the transition is so smooth you don't even notice it. It's just, now we're doing this in the movie, and it hits you hard. It's just great. Now, I know a lot of this movie when it first came out, it got a lot of comparison to Jaws and Godzilla, and you know what? I'm going to go ahead and agree with that, although this movie does its own things, which really makes it stand out from both Godzilla and or Jaws, but it definitely, pays homage to those two films in a lot of ways. What I really underestimated, was the quality of the story, which had some of the most involving characters I've ever seen in the monster genre. You will embrace these characters for who they are, and you will enjoy every minute of their screen time. Most of the time you watch a monster movie, you're dying for let's get to the monsters, let's get to the action. Here, I can't say that I ever felt that at all. I always felt invested in what was going on. The performances were, simply put, awesome. Some may criticize the comedy, but it really adds to the humanity of these characters. So in the end, you appreciate them a whole lot more, and it makes them stand out. The monster itself, which I do not want to give too much away about, even though it's been a while, but in any case, I still don't want to spoil it too much, but it's a very unique design, and the gorgeous cinematography, as I stated before, really captures the action and story quite well on screen. And now to another great aspect of this movie, one of the ones you may not notice the first viewing, but after repeated viewings it really stands out so much, and you embrace it just as a whole other side of the film, and that's the political aspect of the movie. The way it pokes fun at government and bureaucracy, and just a number of things. I think one of the main points it was also pointing out was America's military presence in Korea. I would definitely say that it's much akin to how director Ishiro Honda instilled political and social themes into many of his greatest sci-fi epics, such as the horror of the nuclear arms race in Gojira, or the satire of commercialism and the business industry in King Kong vs. Godzilla, or even the folly of man's greed and also brutal indifference to the sufferings of one another we all impose in life in Mothra vs. Godzilla. Like those films, The Host is bound to become a classic amongst the sci-fi genre, if you ask me, and rightfully so. The same way those movies, King Kong vs. Godzilla, Gojira, Mothra vs. Godzilla, all pointed out, some of the more lousier qualities of human beings. Those are things that are pointed out in The Host very well as well. And just like those three movies, though, this movie also doesn't just show the pure negativity of what man is capable of. We also see, triumphs of the human soul, you could say. People actually helping out their fellow man. But there's definitely, a lot of, just a lot of poking fun at the military and the media and just politicians in general and how they handle situations like this, that cause chaos. And what happens is just just a lot of lies and deals done under the table, things of that nature, and it just makes it a great movie for that aspect as well. It really just reminded me of the early 60s and 50s, not Godzilla Rise Again, but the earlier Godzilla movies before it became really campy. Themes, like I said, like King Kong vs. Godzilla, Mothra vs. Godzilla, and the original Gojira all had those themes such as that. And later on, Godzilla movies would have that too, and that's what makes the host great, because it didn't just try to be a horror movie. It wasn't just a human drama. It also had those socio-political issues in there as well, which just made it just that much more enjoyable to watch. I mean, every time you watch it, you could look for something different. You could watch it for the characters, you could watch it for the monster, you could watch it for, like I said, the social commentary it does. It just does all those things so superbly well. There's no way I could ever rate this movie any less than a 10 out of 10. For me, an A+. I heard rumors they were going to remake it. How they remade a whole lot of Japanese and Korean and European horror and sci-fi movies into American cuts. And almost every single time, they're universally hated. And sometimes for reasons that are not justified, sometimes they are. In my experience of watching that, I'd say just don't do it, because it's usually, at the end of the day, it's pointless no matter how close you are to recreating the material or not. It's still very pointless. I mean, if you want to represent it, just show it theatrically. Don't sit there and remake your own version of it to make money off of it. It makes it pointless. But in any case, wrapping this up, the movie's very good. For anyone who hasn't seen it, I highly recommend it. Definitely go see it. Definitely not to be missed. And yeah, it definitely is up there for me as one of the best monster movies of all time. Just a very good piece of sci-fi, horror, drama. It's up there. It's one of the best. So, with that, Josh out.